Hello, Desire. How are you, Desire?
Hello, Doc. Good. Is it morning?
Good morning. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
All right. Where are you joining from?
I am currently in the Philippines. I should be in Zimbabwe or South Africa in the next 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. I'm so excited for you, global traveler. All
It's
right.
my
So what time is
pleasure.
it now?
The time is 5 minutes to 11 p.m.
Oh, that's good. So we're going to wait for others, but hey, that's very late. Hope you're going to endure.
It's okay. It's
That's
okay. Where are you based?
I'm in LA, Los
Oh,
Angeles.
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yes. So let me put, did you see the link for the pre-class survey?
No, not yet. I
I
did
sent
not.
an email. You can do that. I also want to put it in the chat,
Okay.
but I already emailed through the emails that you usually get from Dr. Panasik.
Sure. Let me do so right away.
All right.
Okay. Done.
Right. Good. Hi, Caldren.
Hey, how are
I'm doing fine.
you?
Yes. Have you also taken your pre-class survey?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, thank you very much. Perhaps we could, it's 8:02, we could wait until 8:05, maybe just to allow more people to come, then we can start. It's good to see you guys. Welcome, Glory. Welcome, Shepherd.
Thank you, Doctor.
Yes, good to see you. Hi, Shepherd.
Hello, doctor.
Oh, good to see you, Shepherd. Shepherd and Glory, have you taken your pre-class survey?
No, Doctor.
You can do so. I've already put it in the chat and I emailed it to you. Just go through it quickly because we are now starting, and just send it in as we go. I will share my screen so we can start.
Doctor, I cannot say something. It's not okay.
Do you see it in the screen, Glory? Okay, do your
Yes.
best. Do your best. Can you see this? My share.
Yes, it's
The screen now,
clear.
yes.
All right.
Yes,
Yes, today's class is based on climate change and gender. I just wanted to pose a question for our discussion, relating to gender. What do you understand by gender?
Essentially just male and female. But were you asking gender in the case of climate change?
I just wanted to understand what you know about the concept gender. So are you saying to just say male and female is the same thing as, what we would reflect on the word sex? Is that the same thing?
Well, I think it's more of an identification. Where gender, when you say gender, I think it's more of an identification.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Caldren, for your thoughts. Anyone else who has an idea of what gender is, so we can just start our discussion from there? Anyone else?
We can also shortly, briefly define it as characteristics of men and women, boys and girls, in relation to how they are socially constructed as well. So it can be biological or social.
Okay, so that is how, thank you, Desire, for your contribution in addition to what Caldron said. So we know that, yes, it relates to males and females, but it goes beyond just the biological aspect of differentiating men from women by looking at what society says about the role of the women, the role of the men. So it's a social construct that we need to agree. And so because it's a social construct, it means that it's different from one place to the other. That is the most important component. If people view women in Asia in 1 or 2, 3 ways, it may not necessarily be the same as how Europeans view women or men. So it's a social construct which ascribes roles to men and women. So people carry themselves according to what society is ascribing to them, or what is it that they expect women to do or men to do. So that becomes what we refer to as gender. But I wanted to highlight that gender, the concept of gender is widening. Most people, when they throw in the word gender, they can also use it loosely to mean much more than the roles of men and women. So it's actually also getting to be so varied from one place to the other. I remember even in my own class, while I was still in school, in my latest degree program, there was a time when this concept included age and also many other things that you would not even think are part of gender. So the horizon, which we see now on gender is varied from one place to the other. But I just want for this class to make sure that we are looking at the men and women. Yes, there's the biological element, as Caldron said, and also the societal meaning of the roles of men and women, as Desire said. So we are going to use that as our definition for gender. We are not going for the full-fledged in sort of growing definition of gender. So how does climate change, relate to gender? So maybe this would be my last question before we go into the slides. You were about to say something, Caldron. You said, did you mean in relation to climate change? What did you have in mind?
I would say that climate change does affect men and women differently. Not to a great extent, but there are discrepancies as far as climate change affecting men and women.
Okay. So I think as a base statement, I will agree with you that yes, climate change impacts men and women in different ways. It's not only ways, it's also capacity, in different capacities, in different modes. When we look at impacts, first of all, we also have to realize that people are going to respond. So as my other, base statement, I would say, yes, it affects them differently. They also respond to climate change in different ways. And you will be surprised. Sometimes the magnitude is small, and sometimes the magnitude is very wide. So let's just have that in our backdrop as we start the discussion. I just went online and wanted to see what kind of headlines are appearing. Sorry, I highlighted them in very bright colors so that we could actually differentiate them. These are headings from different newspapers, from CNN, from BBC. As you can see, the first one, the UNDP, news, from UN News, and all sorts of news that we have out there online. For example, the first one, which says women are hit hardest in disasters. So why, okay, my sentence is blocked. Why are responses too often gender blind? Somebody is commenting on that, like they notice the gender blindness. Why are we even bringing up disasters? Because these are disasters that we just spoke about, the weather-related events. The climate related events, the extreme events, those are the ones that we want to focus on as we deal with this. The other one says women and children are 14 times more likely than men to die in a disaster. And this paper actually quotes the most famous tsunami of Banda Aceh, or the one that affected Sumatra in Indonesia, and that was in 2004. And this particular one, the newspaper says that it's easier when you look at the numbers for you to be able to see that for real, women actually suffered the most. 70% of the women died. 70% of the people that died were women, if I may rephrase it like that. So that shows that there must have been something about women which made them die in greater numbers than males. And that's what we want to explore. And this one says communities recover faster when we support women to get back to their feet. Why are they focusing on women getting back on their feet? It's because they are hit the hardest during these weather-related events, which are obviously driven by climate change. And then the last one says prevailing gender inequalities in Asia Pacific render women and girls more vulnerable to the impact of disasters. Obviously, once again, disasters that are climate related. So we are still, touching a little bit on the extreme weather events, because some other events which I said are geological and also anthropogenic, some of them, we can talk about that in relation to women and men, but our focus is mainly on these ones that are pushed by climate change. So anyone with any comment on this slide? All right, so let's move on. These are some of the highlights that I put together on this slide to say, yes, like we just heard from those that have spoken, climate change or the climate crisis is not gender neutral. It's going to definitely affect men and women in different ways. So we are not just thinking of their biological nature, but do not ignore the biological nature, because it has to do a lot with those inequalities. And so when we talk about women, I've realized that at the beginning, even when people were pushing the whole idea of feminism, it was always women, women, women. Now the narrative emphasizes girls too. And I think one of the people that spoke already mentioned girls. It now mentions girls and boys. So you want your narrative to be inclusive because of the inclusive nature of the narratives that we have in any form of study. So women and girls experience the greatest impact. Why is it that they face the greatest impact? The greater part of that position is because of their gender roles. What women do, the activities that they are assigned, especially in the South countries. I don't know if you know the difference between the North and the South countries, but we can divide the globe into many different dimensions, one of which is the Northern countries and the Southern countries. Not just North as in the Northern Hemisphere, as you would understand geographically, but also politically and economically. The South countries are actually more struggling. They have economies that are still yet to improve and cater for its own people, whereas the North countries are generally regarded as, countries of high incomes. So most of the women in the South nations, they still have the basic responsibilities of household chores, household responsibilities, caring for the children, caring for the sick in the family, caring for the elders. Because in our society, especially the African society in Africa, I would actually be able to speak for this group of people, because I personally come from there. And I know that when we grow up, even no matter how educated you are, no matter how far in the world you are, you always look back, because this is what our society has told us, to take care of our parents. And so we always either bring them to us or care for them where they are. So most of the time, the woman is the one responsible. Even if this is the mother of the husband, but the woman has to make sure that there's food, there's provision, there's health facilities relating to the elderly in the family. So that just widens the role of the woman in a marriage. And so because of that, even when disasters strike, you see that the women have a lot to do. The men might actually be engaged more in the infrastructural damage that occurs, but the women go beyond just, the infrastructural damage, but they also cater for the socio-economic situation of the family. So this does widen, their responsibilities, and therefore it means that they feel the impact of climate change much more, as we shall see. And then on the basic ideas, we also see a rise in child marriages, mostly because the parents in some cultures, when they are struggling, they tend to marry their children off very quickly with the hope that this would improve their status. Some communities are like that. And then also, it does affect the women in terms of their biological makeup, as it affects their, how they deliver their babies, how they carry their babies. All that is very important. So some examples, like, I love case studies. So look at a few of the situations that are happening. This is a picture that I saw online, and I loved it because it's showing women, and the women in this case are actually washing their clothes and putting on the lines. Can you imagine how dangerous that is? They are even putting their clothes on electric lines. I don't know if they are aware, or they are just doing it because that's what is available. And what are we drawing out of this? Just how desperate the women can be in a situation that is dire like this. This is Haiti after Hurricane Matthew. The women are trying to cope with the daily needs of the family. And Haiti is one of those places which is constantly under a big threat of a lot of hurricanes. And not only hurricanes, Haiti was devastated by an earthquake that actually killed 250,000, 250,000 people. And yet it was just a 7.5 earthquake in terms of its intensity. So we know that the major reason why so many people died was because of the poor engineering that actually was used in the construction of their homes. So this is a very high risk area in terms of disasters. But look at the women. They have to wash the family clothes. They have to put the food together. They have to even make things happen, even when situations are dire. When a hurricane has hit an area, we talked about this, and you also know it already, that we have issues of health. The water is not clean and all that. So the women would actually be responsible for making sure that these things happen. I'm not ruling out the role of men. In other places, men are very responsible. So we are not just saying that it's women only, but I'm saying there are more of women that are going to face these challenges. And some of the time is because most of the society now is a lot of women-led families, which means the males are missing. Either they've passed on, or there is a big issue like in the northern countries where the divorce rates are very high. The males have separated with their families, and therefore the women are leading lives on their own. All these are situations that you can not specifically say this is the country where things are going well, and this is the country where things are worse. We may not even go there in terms of analyzing how the family structures are. But in some cases, some women-led families suffer, as you shall see with the case study that I'm also bringing, the case study of Cyclone Idai. For this one, that I know I love Cyclone Idai a lot, because I took about 23 students to Chimanimani, where this happened in 2019. I think it was 2 months after the cyclone hit. So we're able to be on ground zero and talking to the people, and did a survey whose results we actually composed something like an 85-page narrative on Cyclone Idai. We looked at the environmental impacts of Cyclone Idai. And in that, we also included the study of women and girls, how they were affected. We found out that other than the destruction of their homes, as you can see in the pictures, these are pictures from Cyclone Idai. So other than the destruction of their homes, and also, you know, a loss of wildlife in terms of vegetation as well as animals, actually people's health was affected, both males and females. But for females, what broke my heart was that the women, when we went to the clinic, when they were talking about how the cyclone affected them, they were saying that as they were swimming, trying to cross the rivers that were filling up, because some of them had to go to high areas, and that meant crossing the rivers. And also that those people that were trapped in the hills and then found those hills, being really destroyed, or the huge rocks in the hills being dislodged. So they also were forced to be in the water. They had water and soil in their uterus. And this was proven by the nurses and the doctors at the clinic in Chimanimani, at a place called Koba. And I'm sure Shepard would know this place in particular. So the fact that women had soil for the first time, I know I had dealt with disasters before, but this was new to me. And some of the women, we saw them, they were still healing, they were still in the clinic. Some of them were now up and about and said they had to be pumped. I think you guys have an idea that if a woman is raped and then she immediately is taken to a clinic or a hospital, they actually pump the woman's womb so that they clean it out. So they had a system similar to that which they had to do for the women to clean their uterus. It was so heartbreaking. I had students, and I saw students crying when these women were giving testimonies. So that narrative is part of that, write-up which we did for the university. I hope that one day they publish that, because it was really so detailed. And I had managed to link up with what is called EMA in Zimbabwe, is the Environmental Management Agency, which means it's a government arm which deals with environmental issues. So we did a thorough, a really detailed study of women and how they were affected. So some of them were actually saying while the cyclone was happening, rooftops were being blown off and the children would actually have rain and on them, and the elderly. So they were not as strong as the male-headed families, where the men would go out and try to put something to cover the family. So it was a big challenge for the women. And we know that women can also be strong. Yes, I am all for that. But with the study,
does anyone pause you to stay here? No, I need to class in the liquid. It's a conversation with class. Bro, no, there's an interruption.
Do you mind muting? Thank you. So despite the fact that women can also be strong, and I know especially African women can be very strong and take care of their family's needs, but there are times when that absence of a male figure in the home really affected the people in Chimanimani. This is just particularly for Cyclone Idai. And so it applies to also other parts of the world. Look at the middle picture with all those boulders. This is a school that's in Chimanimani, and just next to it, there were also lots of churches which housed us when we lived. There were 4 days living in a church with those students. And we could walk around and see all that. And we saw males picking up these large boulders. Yes, women could do that also. But can you imagine, together with the other responsibility they have, women struggled in dealing with this. So if the rocks were around their homes, they had to deal with this no matter what, or else maybe have some people come from the village to help. So it's important to realize that the task becomes a big toll for the women. So for Cyclone Idai, I still have, memories of how these people suffered. Their fields, their lands where they grow their crops were filled with these rocks that came from the mountains. And so women really were affected greatly. So concerning the Asia Pacific communities, they also face these challenges which the African women are facing, and also, other women that are on the ground, or people that really relate to the environment more for their survival. And a lot of them still feel the threat of these climate-induced extreme weather events as women more than the men. And so the narrative that we also get from there is not just about the struggle, but it also is the response and adaptation to say that once the events have taken place, we find that it is so hard for the women to have access to relief. And that also stands out in other parts of the world, which are in the South. A lot of women do not have relief. The biggest problem for this being patriarchy, our society being male-dominated. However, we have this gender narrative running throughout the whole world, but we still have, a lot of societies that, even though they understand that now we have to also care for the women and cater for the women and acknowledge them, because what was missing was the acknowledgement. We still have male domination. And I'm sorry to say, even in the North countries, it's still there, in the jobs and everywhere, it's still there. But you just have to know particular case studies. So the women still suffer recovering from, the extreme weather events or climate-induced events. So there is need now to find a way to actually deal with this without demeaning men, or without, leaving women to struggle on their own. We have to find ways. So one other thing that stood out for the Asia-Pacific communities, we realized that, as we shall see in the next slide, the incidence of diseases is not just the area being affected by malaria or Zika virus, but it's what these do to the women. What do these diseases do to the women? So the maternal or the neonatal aspects of their livelihood, giving birth, carrying babies, it becomes worse when a woman is suffering from malaria when they are carrying a baby, or when they actually are affected by the Zika virus. So we have both males and females being affected by malaria, but it's worse off when the women have to deal with childbearing. That's the difference. Malaria numbers may be the same, but after that, a man can recover. But how much does the woman recover, or at what rate? It's almost like when people say, okay, COVID-19, we can actually treat COVID-19. However, if somebody is an underlying condition, it becomes worse. So this is the same thing with, women concerning, these two diseases in particular, malaria and Zika virus. It's almost like an underlying condition when a woman is pregnant, because there are sensitivities that women go through because of the pregnancy. So we want to note that. And then for this particular one, these are pictures that we always see about African women in the East African region, as well as in the Sahel, traveling long distances to get water. Now imagine the burden that actually befalls women. You might say, oh yeah, there are boreholes. And I think, Shepherd, with your career, you would say, yes, we can have boreholes and we can practice farming. The women are going to get the water nearer. Oh, well, do you know that the underground water storage is actually being affected greatly by those boreholes? And not everyone has money to be able to sink a borehole. I think that we are all aware of. But here is what we are talking about. The women will still need water to prepare the meals. According to the African culture, the women would always have to go out there. And think of the pastoral communities, the pastoralists in East Africa, where it's already drought-stricken. And now, because of climate change, let me tell you something about Mount Kilimanjaro. It used to be a very big source of water during the dry season. So when it's warm, then the glaciers on Kilimanjaro would actually melt to give water for the Turkana people. But now, and much more, the Maasai people and all that. But now, because of climate change, this mountain, unfortunately, the glaciers are actually also, you've done that science with Dr. Panasik. We are losing a lot of ice from off of that mountain. The glaciers are melting. So how many years do we still have, to just, depend on the glaciers from Mount Kilimanjaro, from the mountains in Kenya, or anywhere else in the world? How many years do we still have? Very few. I think I was reading one article that was saying maybe 5 years or less. So we are talking about, sources of water which are disappearing because of climate change. But I remember Glory was fascinated by the vulnerabilities, like which women are vulnerable. So I decided to put a list there. What is used, or what the term indigenous is used for in this case, it actually refers to societies which are very much dependent on the environment for livelihoods. We know that there's no continent without indigenous people. We can talk about the people in New Zealand that are indigenous to the land, in Indonesia, in Africa, in South America, in the Amazon, the deep of the Amazon. You will find indigenous people. We had indigenous people, Native Americans here in the US. So there is nowhere where there are no indigenous people. We do have them. There are still some of them in pockets of the area of the land where they are close to the land. So indigenous people, and also people of African descent, because of the nature of colonization, African people have been deprived of their resources. So most of them also have been forced to just depend on the land. Older women, LGBTIQ, I'm not sure the meaning of I. And then we have disabled women and girls. Even in Chimanimani, when we were there, we actually saw women that were talking about how they could not do anything because they had no one to help them. Usually they get help from their children. So when their children could not actually withstand the force of the cyclone, they were just sitting there not doing anything, because these were younger children. They were like two families that we saw. And one of the children actually got hurt. And it was not until the neighbor saw them a day after, because this cyclone happened in the night. That's when the neighbors took the child to the clinic. So disabled women, or women dealing with disabled family members, they suffer a lot. Migrant women, if you are a migrant, generally your resources are limited. Your access to space is limited. And then rural and remote women, like this woman who we see in the picture. Women in conflict regions. East Africa has always been hit hard by, wars in Sudan. And actually that whole Horn of Africa has always had persistent wars that are actually recycling themselves over the years. So conflict areas and disaster-prone areas. We want to make sure that when we write anything on this, we quote or we cite or we use a case study from this list of vulnerable women. So in general, also, climate, we already know that it's a threat multiplier. So I just picked a few areas. Where is it multiplying threats for the people? It actually escalates the social, political, and economic tensions in the region. It's already an area that's affecting everybody. But for the women, it worsens their position. It is a driver for conflict. But what has conflict to do with women? It increases gender-based violence. When actually women are out there and there is conflict in the communities, usually the women, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, you young men that are here, and this is what we hope that you would never do, sometimes the men take it out on the women. And sometimes it's not their family members, it's also people out there. Like I did a study of pastoral women in East Africa, like what life do they lead during climate change and during COVID time. And there were a lot of narratives which actually show that women get raped, or the rate of raping women is much higher because of the pressure from the COVID-19, as well as pressure from even that livelihood where people are not getting enough. pastoralists, they used to roam East Africa and also the Sahel in West Africa. But because of the establishment of countries due to the, European invasion of Africa, it limited their open spaces. But these are people who have refused to change their lifestyle. So they've continued to live a pastoralist way of life, which means they need to travel. So they travel distances, but those borders slow them down. So it takes months and months before men come back to their own women. So women then become vulnerable to other passerby men that might want to take advantage of, their being women. So they are raped. There is violence for those women that are not covered because their husbands are away, practicing these transhumans. It's a whole lot of stuff. And even when we talk about human trafficking, why not just call it women trafficking? Because women are the ones that are trafficked more than any other. And then next is the children. When it comes to numbers, it's women first, children next, and then men last. Probably men can fight. They can fight and refuse. We're talking about where trafficking is really done in such a way that people are being violently ripped out of their families, like what happens in China. So you see that it's very important to notice that women here, that's when their biological nature gives them a disadvantage, that they are even referred to as a weaker species. Yes, we have strong women, we have them out there, but the majority of the women, they are weaker in terms of their biological structure. And sometimes people don't even want to hear that. They say, what, we are strong. Yes, sometimes even women say, I don't need a man. Yes, that's up to people, from their society and what society tells them. But generally, men are much stronger physically. In general, they are much stronger. So they are able to resist even the fights that people engage in during trafficking. So their numbers are less than women. So women are at the highest, and then children, and then men. But then again, I don't want to overlook the idea of, different places experiencing different, forms of trafficking. We might have other places that might require more men. So there are more men that are taken, just like during slavery, that the first time they came to Africa, they wanted men than women. And then later on, when America realized, we could breed, a new group of enslaved people by making these enslaved women have children. And then they started to want more women, and they started to make women more expensive during that time. So it varies with space and time. Yes, just to finish off on this one, because I meant to also touch a little bit on diseases. So are we saying that's it? Women cannot do anything? No, actually, the studies show that women are agents of change, and they can make a very big difference when it comes to, crisis that is related to climate change. Actually, one narrative says that if you equip women, which means capacitate them, there is likely to be more effective work that's done in a community where women are the first responders. So generally women, because they want to get the clean water, they want the food, they respond very fast. Sometimes men can even lag behind women. But where there's good leadership, both males and females are important in addressing the issues of change relating to climate issues. But most women lead those community gardens. They lead, a lot in some of the church-driven activities, which are supposed to be to bind the communities together and work together towards disaster preparedness. I love a lot of activities that we did at Africa University with some of the students who would go into the community and would deal with fish farming and with gardening in the communities around the university. And what we saw out there were more women getting involved. And that was a very good thing. And sometimes when I would actually arrive at a place with students, and they would actually ask the people in the community, especially the men, would say, who did you come with? Okay, who is your leader? They would not even expect me as an environmentalist to be leading a group of students. They always wanted to see a face of a man. I remember one time we went to Marange, and in Marange, we had to meet Chief Marange, and for some reason, It was just something that I didn't even know how it happened. But they'd asked me to come and talk about transboundary, water bodies. And I was talking about how our country is linked to Mozambique and how whatever happens in Mozambique can cause disasters in our country. Just 2 weeks before Cyclone Idai happened, we had not even been told about the cyclone, but we ended up having people dying in Marange because of water that came from Cyclone Idai down the river, not the rain. So it's important to see that, that link, when you tell people, it doesn't matter that you're a woman, when you are used to be able to go out there and deal with the community, it must actually enforce the idea that males and females are equally important. But the leadership training now is where the problem is. Sometimes women are not given the chance to do that. So it's important that you know that women do play a role, despite that they can be affected heavily by the, these weather-related disasters that are climate-induced. So it is my hope that even you guys, as you affect communities, because I know you're going to go beyond your school, you're going to relate to communities, uphold the role of women, even though they suffer the most. We want to get to a point where they also suffer less. Let's have this whole idea of, viewing gender in a positive way, to say, yes, they are contributors, and yes, we can also protect each other as males and females. I don't know, as I transition and switch off from this slide, I want to take a question or two, because the other slide is much shorter, and because you are going to have these slides, anything you miss out, you'll see it in the PowerPoints that I'll share. So I'll stop sharing. I'll take a question or two, or maybe just what you understood from the presentation. Anyone?
Hello, doctor.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to add from what we are observing in the agricultural sector. Women
Yes.
are the most people who are adopting to climate smart agricultural practice.
Wow. We want that. We want that. Which case studies that? Where is it that you are experiencing that?
For example, if we look at the general climate smart agricultural practice, the likes of mixed farming, intercropping, from based on statistics, it shows that women are the most ones practicing those agricultural practice, climate smart agricultural practice.
Isn't it amazing? What do you think is the reason, Shepherd? Why are women really getting into this, so seriously? Why are they in larger numbers? What is your thought on that? Or even anyone. But thank you for that. I like that stats. If you can share it in the group, just that little bit that you said, so that I can also have it. Anyone who knows why women focused on that? Okay, for the sake of time, I'll say, just like I don't know the background of other people here, but coming from an African background, I know that women, also part of their gender roles is to make sure that there's food in the house. And so that's why you find women relating to gardens and actually having responded to fish farming. We did fish farming in Nyanga, and we had established another fish farming project very close to the university. I've forgotten the name of the place, but there is a very huge national park, and close to it are villages close to Odzi, where we had started, to develop fish farming projects. And like you're saying, Shepherd, mostly women came for that. It's because they know that once they have gardens, they have vegetables. Once they have fish ponds, they have fish to eat at home. So they are generally forward looking to say, if we participate in this, we'll have food for our families, because they are responsible for putting the food, not just putting the food, but making the food and preparing the food for their household. So it becomes important, especially in the absence of males, in those, female-led households, as well as in households where males live in the city and the women are living in the countryside. So because they are directly responsible, they find it easier to engage in those agricultural activities. So that would be my thought on that. Now, as we are going to browse through, I know we have a few minutes left, but let me just go through this very quickly. Epidemics, epidemics relate to the diseases that we have that affect us, but there are different forms of diseases. We know we have chronic diseases, or the diseases that are non-communicable. But the diseases we are talking about here are the zoonosis, the diseases that actually come because of contact with animals. And I know it's good to say we are out of COVID, meaning that the greatest danger of that disease is over. But we know it's still lingering here and there. But we know that COVID is zoonotic. There are so many diseases that will surprise you that are zoonotic. I even was surprised that meningitis is zoonotic. It's airborne. I didn't even know that. I thought it was something chronic that's already within you and all that. So when you look at the zoonotic diseases, you would really be surprised that some of them don't even show like they are diseases that relate to contact with animals. So it's important that you know that with climate change, this would be the best statement. With climate change, they definitely are going to be more diseases that are going to be exposed to the world, because we have glaciers that are melting. And I think some of you in your reports, I haven't gone through your reports, but I think even with your study with Dr. Panesic, you must have mentioned the increase of cultures and also variations in forms of ecosystems that we will have, and therefore they also bear different forms of biodiversity, some of which never existed during our time. So it's exposing spores, it's also exposing pathogens which are going to be trafficked between the vectors and the humans. And so these are things that are coming that are new. But what's old? What is it that we know already? We love our animals, we milk our cows and eat the pigs, ride the horses, have chickens around us. We are always surrounded by animals, but we forget that these animals are also sources of diseases. And so there are so many things that surround us, which we like, such as cats and dogs, but then there are others which we don't quite like, the bats and the rats and everything else. But these also are in contact with pathogens where they eat. Can you imagine the saliva? I was looking at because I also teach climate change and epidemics in one of my courses here. I was just so surprised how the saliva, the little saliva that comes from a rat, how it can land on a little cupboard in your home. And then you just pass your hand there because a rat passed by there. Then you already get that little saliva, whether dried or whatever, and already it can affect you depending on the kind of disease that this rat might be exposed to. So we have so many of these little vectors that will bring pathogens to us. Some of them are airborne, some of them are waterborne, foodborne, bloodborne, and they are coming from our environment. And so we have to understand that in a normal environment, climate change or no climate change, there will be diseases passed on from animals to us. I was thinking, maybe other animals are small, maybe that's why they bring these diseases to us. Camels are known to be one of the species that has the very wide range of diseases that affect them. And look at how important they are to the people living in the deserts. Day in and day out, they have to make use of the camels, especially if they are rural. So it doesn't matter how large an animal is or how small it is, we have danger coming from the animals. And when you study this, sometimes you might even want to dissociate with your favorite dog. But I know you love your pets. I don't particularly like cats. They are too possessive when you have them. So I keep away from cats. But you know what? I've lived in a home where we had a maximum of about 12 cats and 22 dogs. because we were breeding them for our agricultural piece of land that we needed dogs. So we'd breed them and send them to the farm, and breed them and send them to the farm. But I started to tolerate these animals and ended up, finding myself very close to some of them. But we have to be aware that no matter how nice they are, they will still bring disease to us. So when you see this PowerPoint, you are going to see some of the diseases that are related to the animals that I put there. This is for your homework. Maybe today I didn't send the homework, but I will see after Friday, which I will put a mixture of it, maybe a question here and a question from Friday. But I want you to notice that the World Health Organization is actually shown that the climate change is exacerbating more than 200 infectious diseases. I like statistics, and you guys in this course, you're dealing with a lot of stats. And so it's telling us that 200 infectious diseases are already, being activated in terms of numbers because of climate change. And they are what we call non-transmittable diseases also, such as, for example, here they gave an example of poisons from snakes. That's not really a disease, but it's a problem that's going to cause people to die. So climate change is releasing conditions that will allow expansion of our biodiversity, as well as even migration, movement of animals from one part of the world to the other. There has always been migration, but it's going to increase. And then also, on the other hand, it's going to cause some conditions that were not good for habiting animals. They are going to be exposed to that. And so the warmer the climate, the more, breeding of insects is going to take place, and therefore also habitation of, pathogens and the like. So our extreme weather events that we actually talked about make it easy for the spread of these diseases, because the pathogens may be carried along, flood waters, and also the lack of access to clean water will even compound the conditions, of a disease. And I will skip this one. I just want to jump, because you will read through this, just because for our time we need to really be careful. I wanted you to see this. Let's talk about this as my final slide. Here, this is information from Nature. It's just a magazine. But look at what it says. Rising temperatures have already caused 150 diseases to become worse. Rainfall, high rainfall totals, floods, drought, storms, each one of these has already changed the environmental conditions that result in increase in diseases, especially the prevalence of mosquitoes that was just always within the tropics. Now it's expanding into the subtropics because of the temperatures rising. So we can see the increase in diseases according to this. So this is very important to know, that climate change is increasing epidemics. And the epidemics we are talking about are the communicable ones, the infectious diseases. They are becoming more and more and more. And there is a URL which I put there for you to actually read. So on the last slide, what can be done? There is so much that you are going to read on this. Most of all, we need to actually just go back to what we are trying to do: reduce climate change, reduce the carbon footprint. All those concepts that we have learned in climate change, try to reduce climate change would be a big solution. And then this one, which would be my last point, because the other ones are sort of important, but you know them: technology and data collection and the like. But we have this approach, which is called syndemic approach. This simply means that you are looking at an approach which deals with so many different sources. Like if we look at COVID, if we say COVID is syndemic, it means it brings along other negative situations around it. So when we are dealing with COVID, we don't just deal with the disease, we also deal with the side effects of the disease, such as stress, and also dysfunction of families and all that, isolation and loneliness and all that. Those are issues related to COVID. So it makes that disease syndemic. So when we also approach epidemics, we need to use a syndemic approach, that which is going to be holistic and is going to solve more problems than just one. Please go through this slide, and I might highlight a thing or two as I give you the assignment on Friday. I know I've already gone past by 6 minutes, but thank you so much for attending class. Last time I had asked you guys to say, if you have a question, please keep it for our discussion. You can also email me via the same email that Dr. Panasic uses. You can just email some questions, which we can start with at the beginning of our class on Friday. This coming Friday, we are dealing with one more, course that I was asked to teach by Dr. Panasic. So please make sure to come so we can finish up our. This will be my last class, but I'll still be joining you for other classes. And thank you for coming. I'll stop sharing.
Hello,
All right.
hello, doctor.
Hello, Glory.
Yes, you gave us a flip record in last class. I actually didn't know where to upload it.
I gave you one.
An assignment on the extreme weather condition, a flip.
Oh, you couldn't upload the assignment.
Yes, I don't know. There was no space created for that. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
You just
The assignments were put on the flip by Dr. Panasic. But do you think it can work if I put it in an email? Because I've not done that before. He's the one who posted.
okay. I think I'll just do that. So.
Is there anyone who can help you guys who are still there? Can you help? How can we deal with Glory's situation? Did you hear what she said? Can somebody respond? Would my email
I didn't hear what she said.
help? Yes, Caldrin?
Could you repeat that? I didn't hear the entire thing. It was kind of cutting out.
All right, I'm saying.
Oh yeah.
Okay, the doctor sent a flip for the last class, but there was no space that was created by the. I was asking, where do we upload that?
Oh, okay. You got it, Caldrin? How did the others do it?
To upload the last Flipgrid, the last peer review. Or are you talking about the peer review?
No, I think
no, the extreme weather condition
assignment.
Yes.
The assignment I gave you concerning my last class on Friday, right? Did you do it?
Yes.
Because I'm still waiting for Dr. Panasic to clarify a thing or two. Did you do it, Caldrin?
I believe did
Glory, can you mute while Caldrin is talking? Can you mute so you can hear? Okay, thank you, Caldrin. Go on.
Was it like a quiz or was it a flip review?
It was supposed to be a flip. I don't know if you call it a review, but you were supposed to record yourself talking about either you would choose a hurricane or a tornado, and you talk about how that extreme weather event. There was a question about, what we did? We did the other at extreme events, and yours was supposed to be either a hurricane, a thunderstorm, or a tornado, and then you would relate to that extreme weather event. In just the limited 5 minutes you talk about it, your understanding, and the narrative was there. So do you remember doing anything about thunderstorms or cyclones or
Oh, no, ma'am. No, ma'am.
You didn't do that?
No.
So is there anyone on the group that did that assignment? Is there anyone who did that assignment?
I posted the assignment. For those who are not aware, they can go through the chat. So this assignment, I found it difficult to tackle on Flip because it involved creating slides and things that my Flip, I don't know about other Flip from the rest of the class devices, but my Flip doesn't allow me to do. So I'm doing it separately and then have to find a way to upload it. If we can't, then we'll have to email it separately.
Or did you need to do slides? Because I'm seeing here it says that I think Dr. Panasic kind of adjusted it. in your description, discuss the significance of the impact, whether that's how it affects your
Yes.
for the natural environment, quantitative where possible, use slides, graphics, and your presentation. Yeah, I think this was also adjusted by Dr. Panasik, and I'm not yet very familiar with flips. I'm actually starting with you guys to deal with flip grids. So if you haven't done it, I'm glad that you tried to do something, Desire, but we can still relate to Dr. Panasik after he comes back so that he can enlighten you on how to go about it. But Lori, were you able to copy that from the chat before the class ends?
I actually have my flip it. There was no space of way to copy the question. It recorded already, but not as with the.
So here is what you are going to do, Glory. You are going to address Dr. Panasik. No, he's not actually very for the whole group. I want to mute so you can hear it because there is feedback from your mic. Yeah. So you can actually write an email to Dr. Panasik because he would be able to address everyone. Because I'm not sure I quite understand you, but keep me also in the loop for this assignment as you write to him, because I'm okay, you did the assignment even next week when we are done. So, I know that I have to grade that one, but he will give us, the especially even of what you are saying, Desire, that you did 1, 2, 3. Let's address it to him. So when he has time, he can then address the class. Maybe next month the class say something. And if I'm able, I will also just join you. Usually my Mondays are very tight and Wednesdays, but this week I had a free research week for my students, so I could take you today. So let's add to him, and then I will grade it when you are ready. We'll make sure that we do it in the best way possible. That's going to make you come out, more knowledgeable with this kind of disaster. So what you can do in the background disaster, and then work on making your notes, then you wait to just upload it. And also even create your few slides, maybe 2, 3 slides, like Desire said, get it ready. And then it show us how to go about it. And then you present it to me. I will not worry about time for now. I will just, he will let me know when all are in, then I will grade it. Yes, because I'm responsible for the content, he's responsible for the structure of, the layout of the flips and all that. Yes. Anything else before we leave? Okay, so anyway, thank you so much for coming, guys. I will end our meeting. Hopefully, I'll see you on Friday. Bye.
All right, thank you, Doc.
Yes. So why you taking Come on, so what are we supposed to do in that case? Huh? Come there, they tell me to come here. What am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to come out.
Is it at 6 or 6:30? Hello? Is it at 6 or 6:30? Are we starting at 6 or 6:30? 6.
When I always come here, I'm always told the small ticket now. So what am I supposed to do? It cannot be my fault.
That's why I am saying things change.
Even now asking me, I should be working with a tag showing that I'm doing my things. I know it's always here, but always I come here, I'm going to go there.
It will be that.
Okay.
Things change. Yeah, sorry about that.
Right.
Fine now.
Chingastan. Can we be? Oh. Huh? Will I be given? How will I go with it? Because I didn't book. Oh, I go with you. Oh. I'm coming. Okay. Okay.
Oh, hello. Hello. Go walk around there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Go walk around this. Nimekwambia. Nitakupigia basi. Ngoja alafu kupigia. When there's one person who's down, I want to wish you. Now let me get the last one. The last one. You take one now. Today you're not taking it. No, it looks nice. Look at it. What I like this. Yes. Everything more. Yeah, I think it's great. Yes. Really the difference there. It's for you. You are the one who takes they are not taking thing. There's something there. No, that's it. That's all I have. I don't need another video.